I can't believe we're at the end of 2025 and I have read some incredible books this year. I don't think it's been my best ever reading year, but there has definitely been some new favourites that I found, as well as lots of exciting new releases and books from debut authors. I'm filming this a couple of weeks before the end of 2025, but I will have read about 120 books this year. And here are my top 10. These are the 10 books I think you should be picking up if you haven't already. 10 books that should be on your TBR. 10 books I think you will enjoy. These are the 10 books that I have loved this year. Of course, there are more than 10 books that I've loved this year, and I will chuck in some honourable mentions towards the end. And as I mentioned, I'm filming this a couple of weeks before the end of the year, so if you have seen me in the last few weeks of December read something fantastic and rate it really highly and be like, this is my book of the year, disregard this list. Maybe don't disregard the list, but just know that I may have found other favourites in the last couple of weeks of the year. So if you're confused why they're not here, that's why. This is going to be in no particular order, except I will save my top 3, respectively, for the end of the video. But without further ado, let's dive into these books. All of these books, to some extent, fit within the fantasy romance realm. One of them is definitely more like contemporary, kinda. But I am a big fantasy romance reader, so that's what most of them are. I'm going to start off with the book that is the most recent addition to this list, and that is The Wolf King by Lauren Palfreyman. Look, I don't know what I was expecting from The Wolf King, but it absolutely was not to become completely obsessed with these characters and this world. Oh my god, I haven't been able to put The Wolf King down, and I've dived directly into book 2. And I actually did a mix of listening to these on audiobook and then reading them in the physical format. The audiobook is fantastic. Particularly book 2, it has 3 different narrators, so one for each of the 2 main male characters and then one for the female main character. This has just been such a journey, such a ride. It's definitely one of the easiest romantasy reads on this list. This has been perfect for me at a time when, like, I have been struggling to read, I've been a little bit slumpy. This has snapped me right out of it. It is fast-paced, it is action-packed, it is full of romance. It has a love triangle, which I know some of you don't like. I kind of don't mind a love triangle. And I think the way it's written in this is really well done. Even from reading the first few chapters, I was enjoying it, but I didn't quite picture how much I was going to love this. I just think it's fantastic. I think it's a really good example of what's fun and enjoyable about the romantasy genre. It has some spice, it has some steam. I just had so much fun reading this one, and I absolutely whizzed through it as well. It was such a quick read. This one is a Scottish inspired fantasy. It feels quite historical, and it was good to read at this time of year actually. It does feel kind of wintry. You could absolutely read this at any time of year, but having read this in the winter, it has felt fantastic with like those cold stone castles and the kilts and like the pelts. Everything about this just felt cozy and wintry. And I would love to know in the comments if you're Team Callum or Team Blake. If you've read this, you know my conundrum. I am currently Team Blake. Callum is giving me Tamlin vibes, but I haven't quite finished book 2 at the time of filming this, so my opinion may drastically change. I think this is going to be a good one for you if you're looking for something pretty fun and pretty quick with really good world building and a fantastic romance to supplement the fantasy world. Both stand on their own. I think the fantasy elements in this are great. There's a really kind of in-depth political system, I guess, between the wolf packs, which I wasn't quite expecting. It has some real grit, it has some real depth to it. But equally, it's fun, it's fast-paced, it's action-packed, you know the drill. It is entertaining. I swear you're going to be entertained with this one. If you disagree with me, please don't tell me in the comments, it will break my heart. This was just a fantastic read. Highly recommend. Next up is actually a book I read twice this year, which considering it came out this year is quite a lot of times for me. And I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing this author earlier on in the year as well. That book is, of course, Arcana Academy by Elise Cover. This is dark academia adult fantasy with some spice. I won't say there's loads of spice in this one, but I think it's because the romance is this juicy, delicious slow burn, and we are absolutely going to be getting more exploration of that romance in future books. It's an enemies to lovers romance, which you guys know I love. But actually, I love Elise Cover. I have read the majority of her works now. There are still quite a few series for me to read, but Elise Cover has so many books out. So I had a feeling I was going to enjoy this. I've enjoyed everything else I've read, but this is quite possibly my favourite thing I've ever read by Elise. My other favourite series by Elise Cover is Tournament of Crowns. That one is in her Air Awakens world, but it is the latest instalment in that series. But this kind of knocked that out of the water for me. This is absolutely my favourite thing Elise has ever written. This one had a real sense of mystery for me. Like, digging through this story, I found myself questioning everybody and everything, even the main character at times. Like, I didn't know who to trust. The magic system is super unique in this one. It is based off tarot, and the author herself has been practicing tarot for quite a long time, so it was really nice having that expertise like pulled into the story and turned into a magic system element. Our main male lead, oh my god, he's so moody in like the hottest way. I love the Academy setting. In fact, a couple of the picks on this list are Academy based. I really do like Academy based fantasies, particularly when they're dark academias. I do feel like this year, anything that's Academy based has just had like dark academia stamped on it, but this one definitely felt more true to that dark academia fantasy. The ending of this book has got me like in a chokehold. That's why I read this book twice, and I made all of my friends read this book, and then I went and interviewed the author and was trying to force every single person in the audience to pick this book up next. I don't want to be the only person like sitting on the cliffhanger that is at the end of this book. This one felt quite different to a lot of Elise Cover's other works. It definitely felt like it was very much within its own world and system, and I guess that's because it isn't sitting within any of the others like Air Awakens. But this was definitely one of those books I wanted to chuck across the room. It was one of those books where I was like, I need book 2 now. Like, I know book 1's just released, but I need book 2 immediately. Hard Escape, if you're watching this, book 2 please. But I feel like I rambled about this one loads when it first came out, so I guess if you want to go and see a full review somewhere, I think I will have that. Up next is the book that famously made me cry a lot this year, and that is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I know exactly nobody is surprised to see this book on here. Rebecca Ross is one of my favourite authors of all time. My favourite series from Rebecca Ross is Divine Rivals, but I have enjoyed some of her other work as well. So when I found out she was releasing an adult romantasy in the world of Divine Rivals, but it was going to be a standalone and it was going to be looking at the stories of the gods, can you imagine the scream I scrumped? This lived up to every single expectation I had, and my expectations were sky high, and actually this exceeded every single expectation that I had. This book is lyrical, it is beautiful, the writing style is poetic. Rebecca Ross has such a way of crafting stories that are beautiful and intricate, and like her use of words and like it's just so gorgeous. This is going to turn into a Rebecca Ross stan account at some point, and I hope you're all here for that. This one in particular, actually more so for me, this one felt like a real combination of my two favourite things from Rebecca Ross, which is the Elements of Cadence series and Divine Rivals. Divine Rivals for me, whilst it kept that really beautiful like craft of storytelling, it didn't have... There was something about the language use that wasn't quite as lyrical as usual, which is fine. That's actually my favourite duology from Rebecca Ross. But this one, I think maybe with it being adult, like brought some of that back in. Matilda's story is so full of so many twists and turns. I think I cried solid for the last 45 or so pages. And I'm talking like horrific sobbing. There are many pictures and videos of me on the internet crying over this book. This was easily one of my most anticipated sequels, I guess, or book in the same world that came out this year. And I just can't say enough positive things about it. There was no flaws in this. Rebecca Ross can do no wrong. Worth noting as well, this is just the standard edition that I have here, but it has such beautiful character art on the end pages. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this. Like, look how gorgeous that is. I have a couple of different bookish tattoos. I don't actually have any Rebecca Ross ones yet. I really think I should change that, and maybe I should change that with some quotes from this book in particular because it was just so gorgeous. It was lush, it was romantic, it was a completely new take on the world of Divine Rivals. It's set a couple of thousand years before, I think. Chef's kiss for this one. I also feel like I couldn't do one of these videos and not mention Ava Reid in some capacity. There has been 2 new Ava Reid releases this year, this one and A Theory of Dreaming, which is the second book to A Study in Drowning. And I went back and forth on which one to include, but I'm going to include this one just because this one is entirely new and a standalone. But also, this is the one that really felt the newest for me. This one really shocked me coming from Ava Reid. This one is a YA dystopian romance, and I feel like dystopian's having a comeback. There's a number of dystopian titles on this list. I was a dystopian girly in 2014. I was reading Divergent and The Hunger Games and Matched by Ali Condé, The Maze Runner by James Dashner. So to see it kind of come full circle 10 years later and us have loads of dystopian releases has been so exciting for me. This, I think, has really nailed all of the elements that I love reading in dystopian. It is really, really critical of our own world. It offers some really interesting reflections. And I think my favourite element about the dystopian fantasy nature of this book was actually what it had to say about the environment and climate change, which I feel like some dystopians go into, like, briefly. This felt like it definitely went more into depth about the dangers there. This felt like it had the juicy action plot of The Hunger Games, alongside, like, a forbidden romance with so much yearning and full of firsts. And this had the most unsatisfying ending, but in the way that gives me like goosebumps. I get chills thinking about this. In fact, all of my hairs are standing on end right now. So when I say unsatisfying, I don't mean I wasn't satisfied. I just mean like it has left me wondering. It has left me wanting. I want to know what happens next. And I think the beautiful thing about this book is that I'm not supposed to know, and our characters don't know either. Oh, this is another one that gave me some pretty deep heartbreak. This one was really fantastic. I read this earlier on in the year, so I want to bring this back into the forefront of your memory in case you forgot about it. I think this was a February release. I couldn't film this video and not include an Ali Hazelwood book, particularly when there's been so many fantastic releases from Ali Hazelwood this year. The one I have chosen to go with is Mate. When Ali Hazelwood released Bride, I want to say about a year ago, I was like, this is it. She's onto something here. This is an urban fantasy with paranormal elements and supernatural beings, but it does feel like the STEMinist romances that I love from her, like The Love Hypothesis. I actually prefer this one to Bride, which is saying something because I gave Bride 5 stars, so I don't know what that leaves this as, 6 stars maybe. This was full of steam and spice and passion. It had that typical Ali Hazelwood wit that I love reading in her books. In the same way that I feel dystopian has had a bit of a comeback in 2025, I also feel like Wolf Shifters have. This has given me a glimpse into like Ali Hazelwood's fanfic world. I hear so many people talking about like the knotting in this and how the Omegaverse elements are really weird, and I just know those people have never read a normal Omegaverse book. I recommend you do. Go broaden your horizons. But I love that that has started to seep into her work. There's just something so comforting now about picking up an Ali Hazelwood book and knowing I'm in safe hands. There isn't a single one that I haven't enjoyed, but this is definitely up there as one of the best ones that I've had. And I just spent the entire time smiling and laughing and giggling and kicking my feet, and I loved these two, and like I just wanted to smush their faces together. But the humour's intelligent, the romance is really juicy and delicious and keeps you wanting to read. Mage was fantastic, and I can't wait to see what more we get from Ali Hazelwood in 2026. Maybe like 10 books. She's released so many this year. If you're looking for dark and moody characters and religious trauma, then one of my favourite reads of the year has been The Sacred Space Between by Kaylee Reid. This one felt to me a bit like The Night and the Moth, but I did actually prefer this to The Night and the Moth. I feel like this year what I have been craving is more standalones, and I don't think there's that many that I've read, but this was a fantastic standalone option. Everybody in this book is miserable. Their socks are always wet. I've actually done a lot of coverage on this book recently. I filmed and uploaded a number of reviews for this. I've included it in some recent wrap-ups, so you might have seen me talk about this one quite heavily. But in case you haven't, this is Gothic, this is lush. It has this like simmering, full of yearning romance between two characters who are trying to figure out if they're lying to each other, betraying each other, who's lying to them, who's betraying them. There's so much lying and betrayal. They both don't really know who they are and where they sit in the world, and watching them find that together was really, really nice. But also, yeah, the whole book, everybody is so moody and like kind of in a hot way. This is another one that has that like beautiful lyricism and poeticness that I see in Rebecca Ross and in Ava Reid's writing. And in fact, this one actually I think has a author commendation from Ava Reid. I don't know if it's on the back of this or if it's on the back of the hardback. And I saw that the author did some like joint talks for the release of the book with Ava Reid, so definitely a good comparison if you're looking for one. But the line that sticks in my head is this beautiful quote. It's actually on the back of the book here. "Nothing less than blasphemy brought you to me." Oh, delicious. This is so good. If you haven't read The Sacred Space Between, yeah, treat yourself. And she's a standalone, so you can just read the one and you don't need to worry about a cliffhanger. Another book that fits into that like fun, entertaining, I absolutely like ran through it, is the Bloodwing Academy series, or On Wings of Blood by Briar Bolin. This is book 1. I'm counting book 1 and book 2. This was so fun. This is like Fae dragon riders at a vampire academy. This one really did it for me in that like world of steam and spice and forbidden romance and enemies to lovers and like we shouldn't want each other but we do. I love the prophecy in this and like the element of the dragon riding and the element of like the vampires, and specifically actually something I loved. You know I love a dark and gritty fantasy, and whilst this had elements of dark and gritty, my favourite bits actually were the interactions between the vampires, who are kind of like the ruling class within this world, and then what do they call them? They call them like Blightborn. The Blightborn, which are essentially like non-vampires, mortals, humans, whatever you want to call them. And like some of the exploration of the wider world outside of the academy and how those people live definitely brought some things into question that I think are going to be a big point to play in the rest of the series. I loved every single character in this, even the ones I'm supposed to hate, and there is a lot of them. There's a girl called Regan Pansera. She is like a direct rival / enemy of our main character. I would still let Regan Pansera stand on my throat in a stiletto heel, and I would thank her for the opportunity. Everybody in this book is hot, smoking hot. Even the dragon, who's like kind of pissy. This has something about it that if you like those academy-based fantasies that are super fun and energetic, a bit like Zodiac Academy, I think you will love this. I see this one gets slapped with the title Dark Academia a lot as well, and it doesn't quite have that for me. Whilst it has an academy setting, and whilst there are elements of this that are a darker fantasy, Dark Academia doesn't quite feel like the right label for this for me. So if you keep seeing this being described as Dark Academia and you're not a Dark Academia girly, then I would still give this a go. And I need the next book. I need the next book so bad. Briar, what have you done to me? Okay, before I move on to my final 3, which are my top 3 of the year, I wanted to go through a couple of honourable mentions. These are books that haven't quite made the list, but only because I already had another book from the author in the list, or like I kept putting them in the list and then I took them out and then put them back in and then took them out again before, like whilst I was forming my final list. I feel like these 5 books deserve some kind of coverage today. In no particular order, there was another Ali Hazelwood book that really resonated with me this year quite a lot, and that was Deep End. This is actually my favourite, I think, from her like Love Hypothesis world. This one, super steamy, super spicy actually compared to the others. I really like the sports element in this, although it still feels very STEM. But this was also fantastic, delicious, everything I love about Ali Hazelwood. Everything I said for Mate, also this, obviously just minus the urban fantasy paranormal element. Mate had the edge for me just because that is a genre that I generally enjoy a little bit more, so I think just naturally I gravitate towards Mate more. But this was also amazing. Another one that was on this list for so long until it just got bumped off by something else was Silver Elite by Danny Francis. As I said, it's been a year of rediscovering dystopian titles for me, and this was one of the first ones that did that. This was great, again, full of action, lots of romance. The thing that fell down for this for me slightly, and I still rated the book really highly, is it just felt like there wasn't enough exploration of the political system or like the future of the world depicted in this book that made it a dystopian. Felt like it was set in a dystopian future, but I really don't feel like I had enough understanding of like what the main conflict was there. And definitely more of a sway to the romance in this book, which was absolutely fine, and I did enjoy this book, and I think for some people you might enjoy this more than some of the other dystopians on this list. But those are some of the reasons why I loved this, but it didn't quite make it onto the list. A book that really surprised me, and I'm definitely going to be keeping a big eye out on the rest of this series, was Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie. This one is YA Dark Academia, but set in the afterlife. Really good. Really surprised me. I had no idea this book was coming out. I ended up getting a proof copy sent to me, and I read it a couple of weeks before release, and I just remember being like, where has this book been? How have I not heard of this book? So if you do enjoy reading in the Dark Academia space, then absolutely give Immortal Consequences a go. No specific reason it didn't make it onto this list. I just enjoyed these 10 books slightly more than this one, but it was really good. I think this is the first year in a number of years that there hasn't been any monster romance on the list, and that makes me concerned. So in honour of that, the monster romance has been my favourite monster romance of the year. Has to be A Darkness So Sweet by Emma Hamm. In fact, I could have easily have included the Deathless one by Emma Hamm as well. That one was really enjoyable. But look, I love me a monster romance. It is one of my favourite things to read, and I really feel like I haven't read that many this year. But of the ones I have read, and I think just in general, I love Emma Hamm's writing. The Whispers of the Deep series is one of my favourite like go-to monster romance recommendations, and now so is this one. And I think we're getting a book 2 and a book 3 has recently been announced for this series too. So look, if you want some troll romance in your life, pick up A Darkness So Sweet. Also, he calls her Troll Wife, and there was a whole point of this year where I just referred to myself as Troll Wife, so there you go, that's the impact this book had on me. I said earlier, as much as dystopian has been huge this year, so have Wolf Shifters, so my other final honourable mention is Dietbound by Sable Sorensen. This one, also really good, really fun, kind of fits within that action-packed, energetic, romantasy, enemies to lovers deliciousness that I like. I just don't prefer this one over The Wolf King and some of the other fantasy romances that have made this list. I did rate this really highly, I did read through it really quickly. I do think it is a fantastic book to pick up if you are a romantasy reader. You were delicious, you just didn't quite make the top 10. And finally, let's look at my top 3. These ones I will put in an order. In third place for book of the year, we have Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. I love Devney Perry. I love Devney Perry's The Eden series, so when I saw Devney Perry was releasing a fantasy book, I'm pretty sure I rang like everybody I knew and I was like, do you know who Devney Perry is? No, okay, well it doesn't matter, just make sure you grab this book. This is another one I read earlier on in the year and really vibed with, so in case you'd forgotten this existed and I recommend it, I want you to know I highly recommend it. Go and pick it up. This was really gritty. I wasn't quite expecting this to feel as weighty or as heavy, particularly in the fantasy world, the interaction of the different kind of areas, the politics, the kind of world view. And my ultimate favourite thing about this whole story, I mean, I loved our characters, I loved the romance, and I'll chat about that in a second, but my favourite thing about this story, and the thing I found the most unique, was like the monsters. I feel like we don't really get monsters in our fantasy books anymore. Like, the monsters are always the people, right? The people controlling the thing, even if it is a monstrous creature that is kind of depicting that. And I have a feeling we're probably going down a similar route with this, but seeing all of these different animals and these different encounters, there was just something about this that felt so magical. It almost felt like, I'm a big gamer as well, so it almost kind of felt like walking through the wilds of Skyrim and there's like a dragon falling out of the sky on you, or like playing The Witcher and you just stumble across things. And that's very much what our characters were going through. They were in a volatile world. They didn't just have to worry about court politics. They didn't just have to worry about their enemies and what war they were waging against them. They had all of that to deal with, and then these like bloodthirsty, violent creatures that were just intent on murdering things. And it was good. I loved the political elements to this, the kind of treaty of sparrows, the shield of sparrows. It's explained in the book, I won't go into depth. I loved our female main character. She felt really resilient. I'm quite forgiving when it comes to romantasy. Sometimes I don't mind if the female main character, I feel like a lot of people complain if the female main character is seen to be like weaker or like softer, and I genuinely don't mind that, but this character is not. I did find some of this a smidge predictable, but only a smidge, and then even then I had myself questioning. I was like, oh, I think that's gonna happen, but is it? Because now we're going down a completely different route. And again, when I say predictable, it's not a bad thing. It was in a way that I found quite comforting. I felt like I knew where I was going with the story, and even though there was twists and turns and shocks and surprises along the way, I still felt really safe with this. I enjoyed it the whole way through. I am so thirsty for book 2. Penguin Michael Joseph, if you're watching this. It was really fantastic. I think the only reason this didn't rate higher is I think there is still a ways for this book to go. There is a second book coming out. I think we're going to get a third book as well. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or a longer series, but either way, I do think as this series completes, this is going to be one of my all-time favourite series ever, of all time. That made no sense, but I don't feel like it had to. You guys knew what I meant. This is the gorgeous Waterstones special edition as well, in case anyone's wondering what this is. But there are a couple of US exclusives if you're watching from the US, so keep an eye out for those too. The runner-up for my book of the year is To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke Fast. This is the dystopian of the year for me. This had everything I loved about that, like action-packed, steamy, spicy romance with like real threats behind it, combined with a political system and dystopian world building that was really well thought out. This felt really nostalgic to me, even though it didn't feel exactly like The Hunger Games or exactly like Divergent. There was so much within those spaces that I could see in this. It almost felt like there were references that were just coming through secretly if you were a fan of the genre. The ending was painful, I will admit. But I loved the characters. The cast of side characters were fantastic as well. And even though there were elements of this dystopian that I was like, oh, I love that. That's in a lot of dystopians I like. And that feels really familiar. This one felt really new. It felt really fresh. It felt like the story was being told for the first time, and I just loved you. I just thought you were so tasty. I think I read this whole thing in 24 hours. I think I read like 2 or 3 chapters before I went to bed, and then like woke up and read the whole thing. For a long time, I have been going back and forth between this and what you're about to see is my book of the year, which actually, if you know anything about me, you already know what my book of the year is going to be based on this. If you're new to my channel, hello, you're about to learn a lot about me. But this was fantastic. A really, really good recommendation. It's come out towards the end of the year, so I know a lot of you won't have picked this one up yet, but please, please, please pick this up for the end of 2025 or read it in early 2026. And I think this is the author's debut as well, and it came from a short story she wrote years and years ago that she decided to expand upon, and I'm so glad that she did. And then my book of the year, you're all about to be so surprised. Drum roll, please. My book of the year is Blood and Steel by Helen Scheurer, or the entire Legends of Thesmar series. No one is surprised. There is not a gasp in the room. I read this book in January. I've been banging on about this book since January. I have like 4 or 5 editions of this book. I have somehow this year read the entire series and then read the attached series and reread parts of the attached series. I've spoken about this series so much already, I really don't know what else there is for me to talk about this. Actually, by now I will have uploaded a full guide to reading Helen Scheurer's Thesmar World. So at the end of this video, on the end card, I will link that video. In that video, I talk about all the different reading orders, I show you all the different editions that I have, I tell you about why I love the series. But just to give you the highlights, this is a dark, gritty fantasy romance. It is really reminiscent to me of the world of The Witcher. It has shadow magic and wraiths. There is a lot of threats and consequences that our characters face. The romance is forbidden at times, enemies to lovers at others. It really feels like we go on a journey with these characters. These side characters are some of my favourites. Cal and Kip will forever have my heart. There were like elements of academy-based training and training montages that I love. Ginormous world wars. Different types of magic, and oh my god, the betrayal. Like at any one point you do not know who to trust. Saya and Wilder are my favourite book couple of the whole year. There's just only so many times I can tell you to read this book, and if this is my first video that you're seeing of mine, read the book. If you've seen me talk about this series yet, what are you doing? Why haven't you picked it up yet? Why haven't you grabbed it? I've been telling you since January. The fact I read this in January, fell in love with the world, and then it has come with me all through the rest of the 12 months, through everything else I've read. The fact it's come on that journey with me and still remains my book of the year is impressive. Easily my book of the year. This is what is taking the crown. That is all 10 of my top 10 books of the year out of the 120 that I've read, and 5 runners up in there as well, just in case those 10 weren't inspiring you. Before you leave, tell me what was your 10 books of the year, or what are some of the books that have found it onto your top 10 in the comments, or tell me your top like 3. If you liked this video, then you might like my others. Make sure before you're leaving, you are liking the video, leaving that comment and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.